Welcome everyone, my name is Rigel, and today let's take a look at what we know so far about Eurovision 2024 as of late December of 2023. Now, as the date implies, this is going to be the last what we know so far video of 2023, because obviously I'm not gonna do one for Junior Eurovision like a year out from the contest, although there is some stuff to be said there, but not necessarily. Come on. So yeah, for once I'm not doing it at literally the last day possible of the month, so hooray for that, I suppose. But the reason I wanted to do it now is because one is just before Christmas. Obviously, Christmas is next week, and this week we've also gotten a good amount of news, including national final lineups as well as news actually from some of the other national finals, for example. So let's get into the Wikipedia article, as always. Let's get into the basics. The contest will be on the 7th, the 9th, and the 11th. It will be held in the Malmö Arena in Malmö in Sweden, because of course Sweden won last year. And this also talks about kind of the selection process for the host city. You can see here Stockholm actually wanted to do this kind of temporary arena. They wanted to build a temporary arena, but there was political resistance, and according to some internal reports, SVT just wanted something that was reliable, and hey, Malmö was right there. So we are going back to Malmö about 10 years, 11 years actually, after they last hosted, in the exact same arena as we will have it this year, albeit of course a very different stage, as we'll get to later. And you can see here also that we will have a Eurovision village, as we do every year, and this year it will be at the Folkets Park, which, as you can see, is actually a little bit far away from the arena, but I guess we'll just kind of have to deal with that. But yeah, the Eurovillage is a bit far away from the host arena, but what can we do? And next to Folkets Park, there will also be this Eurovision Street, so make of that what you will. I'm not sure what this really entails. So yeah, we will be having the contest in Malmö, in the Malmö Arena. And this is the theme art, I suppose. The slogan is "United by Music" because they decided that after 2023 they were just going to take the 2023 slogan and make it the permanent slogan, which I think in and of itself isn't necessarily a bad thing. I think a lot of fans kind of overstate the importance of a slogan. Like, if you're being honest here, I think 95% of people who watch Eurovision won't have known about the slogan beforehand, and when they do learn about it, they don't really care. And at most, the hosts are probably just gonna like crack a few jokes about the slogan, but nothing major. Anyways, we will have either 37 or 38 countries taking part in the contest, with notably Luxembourg returning to the contest after 30 years of not taking part. So with that said, speaking of countries, let's take a look at the countries. Now, like I mentioned earlier, there's going to be 37 or 38 because the 38th country could be Romania. Now, in case you didn't know, Romania, or specifically the broadcaster TVR, is kind of going through a financial crisis right now. They're having difficulty paying for stuff, partially because of their money laundering. But yeah, quite recently, they approved the 2024 budget for TVR, and it does look quite likely that Romania will be in Eurovision 2024, but official confirmation is pending, and I would say TVR are currently still in negotiation with the EBU, but from my perspective at least, it does look quite likely that Romania will stay in the contest. And of course, the number is one up from last year, that one of course being Luxembourg. But no one else returned. There was speculation that maybe North Macedonia could return because they put an item in their budget for Eurovision 2024, but that turned out to not amount to anything because, well, for one, the funding allocated was very, very small. Like, it's smaller than the budgets of some countries going to Junior Eurovision. And also, they said that next year apparently is the 80th anniversary of Macedonian radio and 60th anniversary of Macedonian television. So they wanted to celebrate that, and they wanted to put more of their funding towards that instead of going to Eurovision, which I don't really agree with, but it's their choice. So let's take a look at the countries that will almost certainly take part in Eurovision 2024, starting alphabetically with Albania. It's a very good time to talk about Albania because if I can get this video out in time, tonight will be the final of Festivali Këngës 62, which is, of course, Albania's national final. And of course also a music festival, and like 2023 they have implemented or rather like Fix 61, they have implemented this system where there will be two winners. The first one is the jury selected winner, who before 2023 would have always gone to Eurovision, but since 2023 they have done a system where the public can select their winner instead. And obviously, last year we had the winner of the televote being Albina and Familia Kelmendi, while the jury selected Elsa Lila to win the festival, making her a 3-time winner and 0-time Eurovision goer. But speaking of Elsa Lila, she is back, and there are rumors this time that even the televote has been rigged for Elsa Lila. She's back with a song called Mars, which in Albanian actually means March, as in the month of March. And there's been rumors that some of the candidates who withdrew from the festival, they did it because they claimed that the festival was being rigged for Elsa Lila. We don't know that for sure, but that is what they're claiming. And another thing I want to talk about is some of the possible favorites besides Elsa Lila to win Festivali Këngës, as in the televote, and possibly go to Eurovision. Now, the main one everyone is talking about is Luan Durmishi. I believe that's how you pronounce it, Luan Durmishi. Unfortunately, I can't remember the name of his song, but in Albanian it translates to something like "to repeat." And that's very fitting with the content of the song, because in the song he actually sings basically a line in Latin, meaning like repetition is the mother of greatness or something like that. I can't remember. But he repeats that line over and over, hence, repetition. And it's quite interesting, although I have seen people describe it as knockoff Constractor, and believe me when I say Constractor will be mentioned later on in the video. But yeah, with Luan Durmishi, some people have described him as kind of a knockoff Albanian Constractor, which I don't necessarily agree with, except for the fact that they're both having like blue kind of staging and are both sending stuff that's not necessarily a ballad or a pop song. Yeah, so that's Luan Durmishi. With a very different song, let's just say. Personally, I'm not a big fan of it. I'm still kind of team Elsa Lila, although most people would agree that her song was a little bit underwhelming. But also, there's this weird system in Festival Congress, at least this year, that even though the jury selects the qualifiers, it doesn't mean anything in terms of Eurovision participation. That is, even if a jury sets a song or an entry to not qualify, people can still vote on it, and if it gets enough votes, it can actually still go to Eurovision, which is a very, very bizarre move. So that does mean that technically Luan Durbishi, even though he was basically voted out by the jury, he can still be the representative of Albania in Eurovision 2024. But I would say that's not as likely at this point, because in the recap they didn't put any of the more unique stuff. They just put him saying this long note, which was regarded by some as the worst part of the song. So yeah, one could say people at RTSH are trying actively to sabotage Luan Durbishi, but I don't know that for sure. But yeah, that's Albania. Tonight we are getting the finals, and tonight we are getting, at the very least, the name who will be representing Albania in Eurovision 2024, and in my opinion, it's very likely to be Elsa Lila, but we'll have to see what happens. After that, we have Armenia, where we don't really have much. Earlier on, there were rumors that Armenia was considering returning to their national final, Depi Yevratesil, but yeah, that didn't turn out to be the case. That was confirmed to be a fake rumor, by the way. So yeah, that's probably not happening. More recently, there's now been a rumor that Iveta Mukuchian could return to Eurovision with a song in the Armenian language, so that's cool. But there's also been several other rumors of random singers from Armenia possibly representing them, and yeah, that's really it. We don't really get a lot of openness about the Armenian selection usually. Usually whatever I can tell you from the Armenian selection for Eurovision is usually through rumors and through Instagram stories. They very rarely, if ever, announce their plans openly, unlike Junior, where we know that they have a usual process of having an internal jury and auditions and stuff. The process for adult Eurovision is much more secretive. Yeah, so that's Armenia. Let's move on to Australia, who, after previous concerns, has now confirmed that they will take part in Eurovision 2024, even though their contract with the EBU ended last year. No one knows exactly how they plan to continue their participation, but, of course, the EBU can just keep inviting them year after year. I would dare say that at this point it's just a formality for them. But yeah, Australia are in. Of course, there's going to be speculation on who's going to be the representative. And there's one name that perhaps you might not expect. Now, first off, before we get to that name, I want to point out a rumor that was reported by Eurovision Tom. If you don't know him, absolutely go check it out. His channel is great. He's from Ireland, and he does a lot of Eurovision analyses. But he also does Eurovision news once in a while, and in the most recent one, or maybe in the one before that, he mentioned, according to one of his sources, that the Australian entry this year is being partially funded by the Victorian government. Now, last year, for 2023, obviously we had Voyager represent Australia, and Voyager are from Western Australia, so the provincial government of Western Australia partially funded the Eurovision entry. And this year, according to these rumors from the sources of Eurovision Tom, apparently the entry is being funded by the Victorian government. Now, the biggest city in Victoria, if you didn't know, is Melbourne. And why do I mention that? Well, after the stage design was revealed by the Eurovision Twitter account and the blog post on Eurovision.tv, none other than Danny Minogue quote retweeted it and wrote, as you can see here, "The stage is set and the countdown has begun." Now, here's the thing. She's usually like UK based now, as is her sister Kylie Minogue, I believe. But yeah, Danny Minogue randomly quote retweeted this, and you might wonder why she would do that at all. Well, I looked up Danny Minogue because I don't know a lot about this celebrity stuff, and it turns out Danny Minogue is from Melbourne. That is the biggest city in the state of Victoria. So, do you see what I see? I'm not implying immediately that Danny Minogue is going to represent Australia in Eurovision, but at this point in time, it's not a possibility that we can rule out. So yeah, that's pretty huge. But otherwise, we don't really have much. I have looked through several other Eurovision associated singers in Australia, and almost none of them, at least none of them that I were interested in, are from Victoria. So Charlie is not from Victoria, Dami Im not from Victoria, and I couldn't even find too many Victoria-based or Melbourne-based singers that were at one point or another related to Australia and Eurovision. So yeah, honestly, our best lead at this point is, in fact, Danny Minogue, which sounds insane to say. But yeah, that's Australia. Let's move on to Austria, who they have talked about their selection once in a while, mostly through the ORF scout Eberhard Vorher. Now, that's kind of about it in terms of like public information. We have had some rumored names, including Julia Stan, I think that's how you pronounce it. Julia Stan, who is the manager, I believe, of Taya and Selena. There's also some other names. I think there's one called Slow-Mo. But yeah, several names. We don't really know much. And allegedly, the artist is supposed to be announced this month, December. So either it's going to happen today or maybe after Christmas, because I can't imagine anyone wanting to work around the time of Christmas, especially in Austria. So yeah, that's Austria. We don't have much in terms of who's going to represent them. It might be Julia Stan. Some names on Twitter hinted at that possibility, but I can't say for sure. So yeah, that's Austria. Let's move on to Azerbaijan, who are of course returning to an internal selection, and this time, as of recording this, I believe they are down to either 6 or 5 entries, and one of those is Isol, who of course represented Azerbaijan in 2018 and brought them their first non-qualifier. But this time, Isol is returning with a song that she wrote herself, and from several interviews, we have kind of sniffed out that the song is in the Azerbaijani language. Which is going to be very interesting because they literally have not done that since their debut in 2008. So that could be very interesting to see. Of course, there's other names as well. And I think they are still going down the route of having the singers write their own songs, which is definitely a good thing. So yeah, that's Azerbaijan. They might select Isol. We don't know when the artist will be selected, but that is Azerbaijan for you. And for the Armenians watching this, Unfortunately, I do not think Azerbaijan will be kicked out of the contest anytime soon, because let's face it, no one cares about the Caucasus, not from the EBU anyway. With that said, let's move on to Belgium, who the French-speaking broadcaster RTBF have selected the artist Musti to represent them in Eurovision 2024. He was selected way back, I would say, in August or September, and since then we haven't had much news. Now, what we do know about Musti is that he is actually a judge on Drag Race Belgique, so he's very clearly linked to the LGBTQ plus community. And basically, the latest news about Musti is that a few days ago, some people approached him about the whole situation with Israel committing genocide in Gaza, and Musti basically was like, RTBF know my stance on this, and he said that he's also going to try to talk about it when he next meets with RTBF, and although he's not optimistic that that will actually do anything. So yeah, it seems clear that Musti is against Israel's recent actions in Gaza, although he's not confident that communicating it to RTBF will really make much of a difference. So yeah, there's that. But other than that, we don't have much. If you want like actual Eurovision content, his song is coming out in February, and we don't know much about it beyond the fact that Musti has said that he wants to be himself on stage, and he's gonna send a song that is typical of his usual songs, which you can check out on Spotify right now. He's relatively big, at least compared to their previous, like, The Voice Belgique names. So yeah, there's that. And after that, we have Croatia, who are returning to the national final Dora, and recently they announced the names of the national final, and also they announced that there will be a semi-final to the national final, which is why this says that there will be a semi-final included in the format. And among the names, actually, I think two of them especially stand out. The first one is Damir Kejo, who of course was due to represent Croatia in Eurovision 2020, but of course that got cancelled. And since then, he's tried again, I believe, last year at Dora as well, but I think a lot of people would agree that his song really wasn't great. I think it was called like Angels and Demons or something like that. I can't remember. But what I can remember is that this year in the lineup we also have another name returning, and that is Let Free. Yes, fresh off of doing Eurovision, it seems like they want to do Eurovision again. And when they were approached about their song, they said that the song doesn't exist. Now, if you can read the subtext behind that, congratulations, you understand what Let Free are as a group and what their goals are. And I will not present any further comments. If you don't get it, you don't get it. Of that said, let's move on to Cyprus, who are being represented by Celia Kapsis, who is a 16-year-old Australian Cypriot singer of Greek origin, of course. Now, immediately, I think a lot of people are going to ask, why isn't Cyprus selecting people from Cyprus proper? And well, according to Eurofans from Cyprus, it's basically that they just don't have a music industry, and that's why CYBC has had to constantly go and look for diaspora and or Greek artists. So yeah, this is no different. Basically, Celia Kapsis is from Australia, but she is of Cypriot Greek descent, and we don't know what the song is yet. However, we have kind of inferred the kind of genre of it, because recently recently Celia Capsis went to LA, Los Angeles, USA, to practice the choreography for the song. So clearly the song is going to involve a lot of dancing. It's not going to be like a ballad or anything like that. And if you look at Celia Capsis's other releases, you will find that most of them are really of that genre as well. So from Cyprus this year, we can expect a return to dance bops, girly bops, or whatever you want to call them. And the song will be written by Dimitris Kantopoulos, who is part of the Dream Team, who has previously done several entries for Greece, obviously, Russia, Moldova, I believe, and yeah, and this year, actually, for the first time, ironically, it seems like the Dream Team is doing Cyprus. So after Cyprus, we move on to Czechia, or as Aiko refers to it, Czech Republic, where they will be represented by Aiko with the song Pedestal. Now, there's been a lot of talk about the live performance, and I don't blame them. But first, let's talk about how Aiko was selected. Basically, she was in a national final, ESCZ, as they do every year now. But this year, they rented out a venue. Hooray, but this time it's just a nightclub, which means terrible acoustics. And that's kind of exactly what happened. And according to people who were watching in the arena or in the nightclub, she sounded great, but that sound didn't really carry over to the live feed on YouTube. And so what we got was a screaming mess. I'm not saying that she herself is necessarily a screaming mess, but the bad acoustics of the venue didn't really do her any justice. The song itself is good, though. You can listen to the studio cut, and I would recommend, if you haven't seen either of those, please just don't watch the live performance. Just listen to the studio cut. It's pretty damn good. People have been comparing it to kind of Avril Lavigne and also Olivia Rodrigo. So yeah, that's interesting. And yeah, this Pedestal, which was kind of the favorite of Eurofans, but then it kind of sunk after people saw the live performance. But they did have a week to vote, and I guess a lot of the people who voted didn't really talk about it, because it turns out Aiko had won the international vote by a mile. And it was actually the same voting system as last year, in that they had 70% international vote and 30% Czech televote. So the Czechs actually didn't really like her that much. They put her 5th in their ranking. Their overwhelming favorite was Ellie, which is kind of surprising. People expected it to be Lenny instead, but maybe SIM card queen, I don't know. That's mostly an Ace Lau joke, but yeah, that's regardless, Aiko won the international vote, and the international vote is worth more than the domestic vote. So Aiko will be representing Czechia in Eurovision 2024. There's been some controversy that's sprung up over this, mostly from Ukrainian Eurofans, who are again angry that someone of partial Russian origin is representing Czechia. Last year it was Olesia from Vesna, and this year Aiko's actually was born in Moscow, and many years ago there's a photo of her proudly holding up the Russian flag. But yeah, no, she's pretty much Czech through and through. She's got Russian heritage, but that's not even the most ridiculous thing that Ukrainians have talked about. The most ridiculous one is that apparently Aiko performed Pedestal at some sort of festival in July, which technically would be against the rules of the EBU if it provided a competitive advantage relative to the other entries. But if you look at the actual footage, she was performing at the festival, and the festival had a grand total audience of about 7 people. I really want to say, much of those being children, and yeah, I'm sure those children are just gonna take up their phones and vote a lot for Aiko. Am I right? So yeah, some very strange accusations against Aiko, but yeah, with that said, let's move on to Denmark, who will be returning to the national final DMGP. As usual, they're going to have 8 entries. This year is going to be held in Copenhagen at a concert hall. For some reason, I don't know why, especially for modern pop music. But it's going to be at a concert hall in Copenhagen, and the hosts were also announced. No one particularly relevant to Eurovision at large, but yeah, they announced the hosts, and according to reports, one of the names that have been selected either already took part in Eurovision for Denmark in the past, or is a big name in a Danish pop industry. I don't know which. There's been conflicting reports, but there is a allegedly big name in the lineup of 8. So if that's said, let's go from Denmark. A national final on the 17th of February. Also, I forgot to mention the names will be announced in January, and I believe a week before the national final there will be a kind of a cappella show where every participant has to sing their song a cappella, so you know we don't end up with live vocal disasters like Riley. But yeah, back to the date of the national final. It will be on the 17th of February, as will be the national final of Estonia. Now, of course, Estonia are returning to the national final Eesti Laul, but this year they've done some changes, particularly in the semi-final. Notably, the 2 semi-finals have now become 1. Traditionally, there would be 2 semifinals with 10 acts in each semifinal, where I think 5 would qualify, basically, and that's a pretty reasonable system. But this year, there will still be 20 acts, but instead of 2 semifinals, there will be 5 acts who were kind of assigned as pre-qualifiers, kind of like the old MGP system, and then the rest of the 15 will have to fight in one semifinal, where it's still only 5 that will qualify. So the qualification rate goes from 50% to 33%. So it's going to be a very, very cutthroat semifinal, and yeah, there's been changes there. Some people say it's because apparently ERR is having funding issues, so you know, that could be a reason why they just don't have the money to have 2 shows, maybe. So yeah, there's going to be 1 semifinal, and there's been some returning names, including Ollie from last year. You might remember him from Venom. This time he's back with a song called My Friend. And also Laura Böldvere, who I believe represented Estonia in the early 2000s and then randomly showed up at UMK one year. But now she's back, apparently with a song that she wrote in 3 hours to promote her new shampoo line. So make that what you will. Yeah, that's about it. There's some other names as well, but none that are really kind of exciting returning names that I can think of. The current favorite is not Ollie, though. The current favorite, at least according to Estonian locals, is actually 5 Minusti, which is a group sending a song with a very, very long title. I think it's something related to narcotics or something like that. But yeah, the title of the song is very long, and that's kind of the main talking point of most people before the song released. It has released now, but I haven't listened to it, so yeah, just looking at the charts, it seems that 5 Minusti are the favorites of the Estonian public, and assuming that the jury doesn't tank them, they are probably going to win and represent Estonia at Eurovision 2024. Now, as usual, Estilal has retained that super final system where the top 3 of the combined votes will be picked out and go into a separate televote only round. So the one who wins that super final will be the actual representative in Eurovision 2024. And later, we'll talk about another Baltic country who has also introduced this wildcard feature. Or rather, this super final feature. So after Estonia, let's go a little bit north and up to Finland, who are having the national final UMK. Now, this year they are having it in the Nokia Arena, which is the biggest arena in all of Finland. It's in the city of Tampere, which was where they planned to host. Basically, had Garia actually won the contest, but he didn't, so they're having the national final here. And the hosts will there will be 3 hosts this year, one of which being Benjamin, who last year was actually in UMK with the song Hoida Mut, and this year he will be one of the hosts alongside 2 other presenters. So that's mostly what we know. We also have like hints as usual on who have been selected for a national final. There were 7. There was apparently an interesting duet or something like that, a world touring rock band who might just win the whole thing, let's be honest, and also one returning name with a some sort of dance pop or something like that, and people speculate it could be Bess. I would tend to agree, but we'll have to see what happens there. But there is one interesting development that happened with UMK in the last couple of days. You can see here the UMK official Instagram. They posted a notice on their Instagram story. Basically, they wrote that the situation in the Middle East is very shocking and serious, and it's also worrying the UMK working group. And now, I'm not going to read out the whole thing, but you can see here, UMK will be organized regardless of whether Finland participates in Eurovision or not. And also, that Yle, which is basically the Finnish broadcaster, is closely following the situation and is in discussions with the EBU and other Nordic countries. Now, this is very interesting. There have been other countries that have actually talked about this, and I'll get to them. But I think this is probably the highest profile kind of announcement of any kind regarding Israel, basically. And if this is very interesting. You can see here that they're not actually ruling out withdrawing from the contest because of Israel. And you can see here UMK will go ahead regardless of whether Finland participates in Eurovision, kind of hinting that there is the possibility that Finland could withdraw from the contest if Israel continues to participate. Now, that's not a certainty, but this is kind of, reading between the lines, and you can see here that UMK will go ahead regardless of what happens. And so we could see Finland withdraw from Eurovision due to the participation of Israel. There's another country in the mix as well that I want to talk about later. But Finland, again, like I mentioned earlier, is probably the highest profile country that has really openly addressed this issue. So, kudos to them. we have to see what happens with the situation, and we'll have to see. Maybe we might not have Finland in Eurovision 2024 if Israel is currently still allowed to take part in the contest. But we'll have to see what happens. Oh yeah, and I forgot to mention that the entries for Finland will be released in January, kind of one per week, I believe, or one per every few days, over, I believe, around the 13th or 14th or something like that. So I guess just kind of look out for that. So yeah, that's Finland. Let's move on to France, who will be represented by Slimane with the song Mon Amour, which in French means my love. Now this was kind of surprising because first off, is France Télévisions doing anything this early in the season, which is quite strange. Second, Slimane is huge in France. I believe he has like 4 #1 albums or something. So it came as quite a surprise when Slimane wanted to represent France in Eurovision, even though most of the French audience doesn't really care for Eurovision. So some people speculated that this was for France Télévisions to promote the entry in Junior Eurovision, but that didn't really end up happening. So yeah, it's very interesting why they chose to do this. But nonetheless, the song is out now, and you know, Pedestal and Mon Amour are the 2 songs that are kind of definitively confirmed as Eurovision entries. And so yeah, that's France. Slimane will be representing them with Mon Amour, which is a kind of very dramatic ballad, not necessarily a chanson, but it is definitely a dramatic French language ballad. So after that, let's move on to Georgia, who actually haven't said anything up to this point, but interestingly, from their silence, we have been able to sniff out a few things. Most of this, though, is thanks to Cat on Twitter. User Cat Visionary Dream, although I think one of the O's is a 0 or something like that. I can't remember, but yeah, Twitter user Cat, his YouTube channel is called KESC Still, KJESCIL. So yeah, you might know him. But yeah, he's a big Georgia stan, and actually from the kind of silence from the Georgian broadcaster, we have gathered a few things. First off, it's not going to be The Voice Georgia, because if it was, they would have announced it by now, and therefore it would probably be an internal selection. Secondly, looking at previous internal selection announcement date patterns, we are probably going to get the Georgian name this month. So I guess keep your eyes out. Georgia might just randomly announce their name. And who might that name be? Well, currently we don't have any indication, but just a fun idea for myself personally. It could be ZKB. Again, that's just speculation on my part, but ZKB, you might remember them from winning Junior Eurovision 2008, I think. Basically, they were the trio who were singing that Buzzing Bee song, and they're actually still. I wouldn't say they're active, but they're definitely still in contact with each other. You might remember that actually in the I think opening ceremony of Junior Eurovision 2022, the 3 basically actually showed up together in like really cool long coats and stuff, and basically sang their entry, and I think they did that again at the live show as well. So the 3 people are still in contact. I think they're in their mid-20s or something like that, or mid to early 20s, like myself. And the reason I suddenly bring them up now, even though their last known public appearance was in Junior Eurovision 2022 is that apparently this week or next week, ZKB are appearing at a drag ball in Tbilisi. So that's something that no one really expected, but is very interesting. And maybe they'll announce that they'll be representing Georgia at that drag ball. Now, that's not confirmed. That's just me making up some fun speculation for the hell of it. So don't even take it with a grain of salt. This is just me making stuff up. So yeah, that's Georgia. They're probably going to have an internal selection. They're probably going to announce said internal selection this month. So let's go from Georgia to Germany, who will be having the national final Das Deutsche Finale, which will be on the 16th of February, not the 17th, because for some reason the Germans love having their national final on a Friday night rather than on Saturday. What's interesting is that this year they don't have the TikTok wildcard anymore. And instead, they will be having another wild card because apparently Germany loves their wild cards. And the wild card this time is going to be a format, an entire separate selection called Ich will zum ESC, which in German means I want to go to Eurovision. There's actually the participants of this separate selection show is already known. I believe there's 15 or 16 of them, most of which are quite literally random people no one knows about. So yeah, there's that. And also, given the German tendency to vote for the underdog, people are speculating that whoever wins Ich will zu MST are probably going to win the national final as well. But there are some pretty big names who have signed up for the national final, and some are hoping that that could kind of balance things out. And after all, last year we had Ike Hüftgold, who was the wild card, and somehow he didn't win. So maybe the tendency to vote for underdogs is waning. Who knows? That's just speculation on my part. But yeah, Germany are having Das Deutsche Finale on the 16th, and a week before that will be the final of Ich will zum ESC. And what's strange about this is that they aren't actually singing their own songs yet. They might have it at the final. I haven't read the rules really, but right now they are just singing covers, so that's kind of interesting. The episodes are pre-recorded, by the way, so they don't actually broadcast them or anything. They just put it on their media library thing. So yeah, that's kind of weird. But yeah, that's Germany. They love weird formats. So with that said, let's move on to Greece, who have internally selected Marina Sati. Now, Marina Sati is actually pretty big in Greece. Usually they're picking random singers that no one have heard of. CF 2023, but this year they've selected someone who's actually fairly well known in Greece, and her genre is basically urban pop mixed with traditional Greek elements, so that's very cool. And she has been submitted to numerous fan contests in the past, so finally, Marina Sati has been selected. There was speculation that Good Job Nikki had been selected, but that turned out not to be true. But after Marina Sati was announced, ERT opened a submission period for any songwriters to send potential songs to Marina Sati. And then Greek media recently reported that Marina and her team have looked at a lot of the songs, and so far she has rejected all of them. However, this was actually refuted later by Marina Sati, saying that she hasn't actually looked at most of the songs, including a song which was sent in by the songwriter of Tattoo and Euphoria. So we'll have to see what happens. But yeah, there's clearly a lot of expectation for Marina Sati. She's, of course, she's also herself a songwriter, and obviously, she could always just write her own song. And in fact, I think it was revealed that she does have several songs ready in case she doesn't like any of the submitted songs. So we'll have to see what happens. We don't know which song has been selected. We don't know when the song will be announced, but we'll have to see what happens there. After that, we have Iceland, who are returning to the national final Sönvakeppnin with 10 participants. The 10 participants will be revealed at the end of January. Now, a while ago, Davi Freyr from Eurovision 2021, he tweeted randomly that Iceland will win Eurovision 2024, although he said that he's not taking part. So maybe he knows someone who's got a really good song that is taking part in the national final. But like I mentioned, the names will be announced at the end of January, and so we'll have to see whether the name that Davi Freyr knows about will turn up on the final list. But after that, another thing that made Iceland kind of turn up on the headlines is that it was reported that Iceland would withdraw from the contest if Israel continued to participate. Now, that's not entirely true. First off, when fans kind of approached them for comment, they said, thank you for your encouragement, which makes me think that they hadn't actually looked at the email. But the people who are actually threatening to withdraw aren't the broadcaster, RUV, but rather the Songwriting Association of Iceland, and also apparently OGAE Iceland, the Eurovision fan club in Iceland. Apparently, they are also strongly advocating for Iceland to withdraw if Israel continues to take part in the contest. So it's those two groups who are advocating for Iceland to withdraw rather than the actual broadcaster themselves, which is why I say that Finland has been the largest, highest profile name who has talked about possibilities of withdrawing from the contest. But yeah, in Iceland, you still have the Songwriters Association, which of course will probably, contribute several songs to the national final. And you also have the official Eurovision fan club of Iceland talking about that as well. But we'll have to see what happens. Maybe Iceland and Finland might talk about withdrawing, but we'll have to see what other Nordic countries are doing. After that, let's move on to Ireland, who are actually in a surprisingly similar situation to Iceland, in that they have also received a lot of requests for Ireland to withdraw from the contest if Israel continues to take part in the contest. Basically, if you didn't know, Ireland is actually one of the most vocal anti-Israel countries right now amidst this whole conflict. A lot of Irish politicians have openly spoken out against Israel, and so one of the likely candidates, you would think, obviously, for withdrawing from the contest if Israel continues to take part would be Ireland. And I believe, according to official sources, there are thousands of requests from citizens asking RTE to withdraw from the contest if Israel continues to take part. And beyond that, we don't really have much. We have the national final Eurosong, which will probably be on the Late Late Show again. There are several possible names for the national final, including Brooke, yes, the one from 2022, apparently she submitted a song, and also Erica Cody, who is another singer who has submitted a song, and I think she talked about already having like choreography and artistic direction and all of that, although I don't know how much that matters when you're performing inside a tiny TV studio, but I digress. There's also been some other names who have expressed interest, but have also said they're gonna stay away because of the current process of taking part in Ireland, such as CMAT. CMAT is actually pretty big in Ireland. She's got a number 3 album, I believe, and she actually tweeted about the possibility of doing Eurovision and that she's actually interested, but the current process, the current selection process, and I guess the whole artistic freedom thing is kind of turning her off from doing it for Ireland. So yeah, there's that. But speaking of 2 countries who might withdraw because of Israeli participation, let's talk about Israel. Or we would talk about Israel if there were any news about it, because almost all Eurovision news sites have basically stopped reporting on Israel, as they should. And if you disagree with me, you might as well unsubscribe and just get the hell out of here. Yeah, basically they have a national final. You might remember the Rising Star. That was what they used between 2015 and 2020, I believe, which of course, and we ended up with names like Netta and also names like Eden Elene. They're returning to that format, and the first episode, I believe, aired sometime in late November. Since then, we haven't heard much. I think they have still been continuing to do shows. There were rather shocking footage coming out from the first episode. A lot of the singers were kind of dressed out in military outfits, IDF outfits, and there were also IDF footage being shown during the national final, which is like, what the hell, why are you showing that kind of stuff, regardless of whether you're in war or not? But yeah, that's shocking footage coming from Israel, to nobody's surprise, really. But I did hear that one of the favorites is a kind of female singer who's got a big voice and is probably going to sing some sort of ballad if she won the selection. But yeah, that's all I'll say about Israel. I don't want to say anything more than that. Let's move on to something more exciting now, and that is Italy. Now, 2 days ago, they announced the song titles of all of the big artists taking part in Sanremo 2024, and also 2 days ago was also the final of Sanremo Giovanni, which is kind of their pre-selection for their pre-selection, and there were 3 names from there who entered, one of which was Santi Francesi, who I believe also came from Sanremo Giovanni last year. But yeah, this year they're doing it again. They've got a new song, and they've won Sanremo Giovanni again, or at least got top 3, so they can be part of the main show now. So yeah, with that, let's take a look at these song titles of the big artists. So you can see here, these are the names, and actually I don't know why they mentioned these are E Big in Ghana, because the 3 at the bottom are literally the ones from Sanremo Giovanni. So like I mentioned, Santi Francesi and also Clara, who apparently has become the first female winner of Sanremo Giovanni since 2009 or something like that, which is insane. And also BNKR44, which I haven't really heard of. But yeah, there's some pretty big names in there: Giolier, Dargan Amico, Emma, Diodato, San Giovanni, Il Volo. Of course, they represented Italy in 2015 and got 3rd place. Alessandro Amoroso, Negramaro, Irama, Mahmoud. Of course, he He's a 2 times Sanremo winner now. He's got a song called Tutta Gold, which means golden jumpsuit or something like that. Loredana Berte, Big Mama, Annalisa. We'll come back to Annalisa in a bit. Mr. Rain, Ricky Boveri, who represented Italy in the 70s, I believe. And yeah, some really big names, like I mentioned, Diodato, a lot of Eurovision names. And now, when I mention Eurovision, I think there is a favorite, at least amongst the director Amadeus. Because when Amadeus talked about all of the entries, there was this whole kind of dedicated kind of song title reveal show that they had, and this time when they kind of introduced Annalisa, basically Amadeus said to Annalisa, what is the name of the song that you will sing to all of Italy, and here's the kicker, and to all of Europe? And after hearing that, Annalisa kind of laughed awkwardly, or kind of nervously maybe, but yeah, basically the director of Sanremo kind of wants Annalisa to do Eurovision, which is fair enough. In fact, she's been a favorite even since the names were announced, or even before the names were announced. But regardless, Annalisa is singing a song called Sinceramente, which in Italian means sincerely. We don't really know what the songs sound like yet. There are apparently rumors that Sinceramente is kind of a mid-tempo song with, and I quote, a hypnotic chorus. And there's also been rumors for other songs as well, including like songwriters and such. In any case, apparently the press will be able to listen to the songs during January. I think in mid-January or so, the press will get to listen to the songs and kind of give their comments on what they think of the songs. So that's going to be interesting, and I think that's definitely going to influence the odds for Sanremo right now, which aren't particularly favorable for Annalisa, I must say. It is pretty high. I think Annalisa's at like 4th or something, but you know, it's not winning. I think actually at the top right now, I think it's either Alessandra Amoroso or Negramaro. So that could be interesting. We'll have to see what happens. But yeah, it seems that Amadeus's personal favorite to go to Eurovision would be Annalisa. So with that said, let's move on to Latvia. Right, with Latvia, we don't really know a lot. We have the National Final Supernova, as usual. They announced that they got, I think, around 108 entries, which is a couple fewer than last year, which is rather worrying. But on here, I actually have a allegedly reliable source who claims to know who is not participating in the national final. We won't have Raul, we won't have Vultura, Elise Hajima, Elisa Legsdina, and Boo. And also Chris Noah is apparently also out. And this user is actually speculating that Greta might be in. I don't know who Greta is. But we'll have to see how many of those come true. But apparently, according to this user anyway, Raum is not in, Elise Hajima is not in, and all the other names I just mentioned. One name that is probably going to be in is Marcus Riva, because he always is. But this year, he's doing something slightly different. He's doing a duet with a Polish singer. I can't remember his surname, but his first name is Leon something. And he actually also happens to be the oldest son of Justyna, who represented Poland in 1995, and her oldest son is apparently working on a duet with Marcus Riva, and they're planning to, they probably did present a proposal to Supernova, so maybe we'll see them in Supernova. We'll have to see what happens. But you may not believe this, but this is not the last time I will be referencing Justyna in this video. But for now, let's go to the neighbor of Latvia, and that is, of course, Lithuania. With Lithuania, they have renamed their national final to eUrOvIsIoN.lt, and basically they've changed the format quite a bit. For some reason, they decided to have 40 songs, which is freaking huge. There will be 5 semifinals, of which only 2 from each semifinal will qualify. That is, like I mentioned, 8 entries in each semifinal, and only 2 will qualify. Like, if you thought Estonia was cutthroat, then oh my god, this is cutthroat times 5. Plus, it's even more cutthroat, actually. So, I don't know why they decided to do this, but quite recently, they have also announced the lineup for eUrOvIsIoN.lt, and there are some names that I find kind of disappointing that are not there. For myself personally, that would be Ruda Loop. Some others have also expressed disappointment that Gebrasi is not in, and also Joseph June, who has also been in recent national finals for Lithuania, haven't really returned this year either. But there are some other names that have returned. For example, Andrius Bojavis, who I believe represented Lithuania in 2013 or something like that. And also Vilija, who I think represented Lithuania in 2014, is also back. So those could be interesting. There's, I think, also Lina Štalytė is also returning, which is interesting because last year she was banned for having performed her song before the 1st of September. So yeah, that's kind of interesting. But those are some of the returning names. But the big one most people are talking about is The Roop, who are returning to the national final just 2 years after their last participation. People have told them to get a job. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, but this time I think they're back with a song called Simple Life or Simple Love or something like that. So yeah, we'll have to see how that kind of turns out. And also Monica Maria is also back, and she's been a favorite as well. I think she was a favorite in 2019, I believe. So yeah, that could be interesting, and we'll have to see how everything pans out. You can see here the final will again be on the 17th of February. So without further clues, it seems like the 17th will probably be our Super Saturday of the year. After Lithuania, let's go to a new country, Luxembourg. Now, I know Luxembourg technically isn't new, but looking at the scale of how much has changed since the 2000s, they are pretty much debuting in the contest, and they are doing it very dedicatedly. Now, they are actually starting a national final called Luxembourg Song Contest. So, yeah, that is a very, very creative name. Human ingenuity knows no bounds and all that. But, the national final is called Luxembourg Song Contest. Over the summer, they had basically live auditions where candidates can apply for a national final even if they didn't have a song, and songwriters could also apply to the national final even if they didn't have a singer. So those two things would be kind of paired together if they saw fit, basically. But there are also, of course, songs that were written by the singers themselves. Now, earlier this month, the lineup was announced. There was 8 in the final lineup, and truth be told, most of them are kind of singers from The Voice. I think there's one from The Voice Belgium, The Voice Germany, The Voice France. Although I feel like the one from The Voice France should be talked about, because it's not actually The Voice, it's The Voice Kids France, which the singer had actually won just 2 years before entering this national final. And that singer is a 15-year-old by the name of Naomi Aye, who, like I mentioned, she's 15 years old, but she apparently has a cover of a song which has 20 million views on YouTube. So that's kind of huge. And yeah, you can tell that she has a huge voice. And so one would assume that she's probably singing some sort of huge ballad for the national final. Some other names of note, or actually, I wouldn't even say Naomi Aye is the name of note, but I think that is one to look out for. But there are 2 other very interesting ones. The first one is Etsun, who is, I think, some sort of R&B artist who is from Luxembourg. He's one of the few who aren't from The Voice. And another one who isn't from The Voice is Child, who, if you've watched my videos, I've advocated for him to be in for Luxembourg for a long time. And yeah, it's happened. He's gotten into the national final, and I believe as of yesterday or the day before today, as of recording this, he posted a video of him and the other contestants doing training under a vocal coach. So that could be very interesting. And in terms of the songs, they will be released in early January. In terms of tickets, if you want to go to the national final, they're sold out. Unfortunately, I wanted to get tickets. Here's the thing, but first off, it was pretty expensive. I got both my UMK ticket and Melfest ticket, each for around 40 euros, and the cheapest ticket in Luxembourg costs 45. So, and that's just a standing ticket, because I forgot to mention that they're having the national final in Rock Hall, and in a city called Esch-sur-Alzette, which is a wonderful Luxembourgish name. Of course, that last bit is French. The first bit is kind of Germanic. But yeah, they're having it at the Rock Hall, which really isn't huge. I would say it's the capacity is probably at most 1,000 people, if we're being generous. It's more like the theater in San Marino. So yeah, not a huge place, so I guess it kind of makes sense why it's more expensive. But from what I understand, you can still enter their giveaway. I have done that myself with one of my friends. You can enter their Instagram giveaway for tickets, and maybe you'll get one. I don't know. But yeah, currently that is kind of the only way you can get a ticket for Luxembourg, which is kind of unfortunate. But yeah, it's not cheap. If you had wanted to get one in with your actual money instead of a giveaway, and a normal sitting seat is, I think it goes for upwards of 65 euros, which is insane. So yeah, that's Luxembourg, and an overly long rant about tickets. With that said, let's move on to Malta, who are returning to the national final MESC. Earlier on in November, they had their basically, well, they call them semifinals, but technically it should be a quarterfinal, but you know, I digress. Where basically the singers showcased their songs, and then I think the televote voted on all of them over like 4 shows or something like that. And most of the favorites did make it to the final. However, one didn't, and that's Oxygen with the song Cloudmaker. that was interesting, I think. However, that didn't make it to the final. But some names that did include Denise, Matt Black, and Ryan Hilly. So those are probably, I would say one of those is probably going to be the winner of the national final. Like I said, Denise, Matt Black, and Ryan Hilly. So yeah, those are kind of the favorites, but there are 12 entries, and eventually I'll get to listening to the songs, but I'm not particularly hopeful. And I did a Twitter poll a while back asking people whether they thought that Malta will qualify, and most people said no. So if that's it, let's move on to Moldova, who are returning to the national final Etapa Națională. That's about it. Although today, as of recording this, it's the 22nd today, the submissions will be closing, and so we will have had the broadcaster will have selected or received the entry that will eventually represent Moldova in Eurovision 2024, and that's about all we have. Now let's move on to the Netherlands, who have internally selected Joost Klein to represent them in Eurovision 2024. Now, Joost Klein was among a group of candidates who were basically shortlisted for their internal selection. Another change they made this year is that they got the head of show named Twan van den Nieuwenhuizen to be their new head of delegation. Now, in case you didn't know what a head of show does, basically he's the main person responsible for deciding running orders. So for the past 3 years, since 2021, that's been his role. But now the Dutch broadcaster has kind of recruited him as the head of delegation for the Netherlands. And Joost Klein is probably going to be singing some sort of high energy song. We don't know like the exact genre yet. It's probably going to be rap, that kind of thing. But what we do know is that the song will be entirely in Dutch, and it will be a pretty fun song. People will definitely make like comparisons to Garia, but of course he's not Garia. So yeah, he will be singing a song that's kind of electronic-y, kind of boppy in Dutch, and we'll have to see how that turns out. So with that said, let's move on to Norway, who are returning to the national final MGP, and this year we have had some rule changes, including that songs can be released at any point after the 1st of September, or on or after this 1st of September. So you don't have to wait until the official announcement to actually post your song. So, potential MGP songs may already be floating out there. And in addition to that, they will be having 3 semifinals. No pre-qualifiers anymore. They will have 3 semifinals. And each one, I believe, has 5 names in there. I can't remember exactly, but yeah, there's not going to be wild cards either, I don't think. What we do know for sure is that in the final there will be a jury, but instead of 50-50, the score will be 60-40, with 60 being the televote. This kind of aligns with the vision of the Norwegian head of delegation, who thinks that the televote should have more power, so they are starting with doing that in their national final. So the jury will only have 40% power in the national final, in the final of the national final, which will take place on the 3rd of February. And you can kind of imply from that the official entries will be announced next month. So with that said, let's move on to Poland, who have nothing written here, but I have tons of information from an alleged insider. I wouldn't say that it is 100% accurate. Of course, it's only accurate if it's officially announced by the broadcaster. But according to people on Twitter, according to people who know a thing or two about the selection process, quote-unquote process, going on in Poland, basically they have selected Justyna. Yep, Poland 1995, who since then, you might remember the entry Sama, although she didn't write that, but since then she has started writing her own music, and she's actually still pretty popular in Poland. And actually, for this song, some people thought it was the song Carpe Diem, but later she actually confirmed that she's not sending Carpe Diem to Eurovision. She said that it needs to be something a bit more special. And basically, what we do know about this song from Justyna is that she worked on the song with Hotel Torino, which of course is a name that sounds very Italian, but it's actually just two Polish songwriters who have been responsible for several junior Eurovision entries as of late. So that could be interesting. This time, Justyna is probably not singing anything like Sama. That was kind of folky. This is probably going to be more poppy, obviously. And more diva-like even. Some people have kind of referred to her as a diva. And in terms of the delegation, because of course TVP is kind of in a mess right now, the new Polish government, led by Donald Tusk, has basically fired a bunch of executives of TVP who were responsible for spreading propaganda. So there's kind of a mess there, but meanwhile that's happening, the TVP account on Facebook changed their kind of Facebook banner to Eurovision 2024. And now, in terms of the song release date, it is said by those sources that the song will be announced as the Eurovision entry and premiered on New Year's Eve, because apparently they have this special show for New Year's Eve. And according to the sources, the song will be released and announced as the Eurovision entry during the show on New Year's Eve. So we'll have to wait and see whether that comes true. I'm not going to do a video at that time, so we'll just have to see what happens. Of course, you can always find me on Twitter at BlueRigel4. So yeah, we'll have to see what happens, but there's nothing written on here, but according to rumors and such, Justyna Steczkowska from Poland 1995 has been selected. Now, there's more to this, because actually the previous ruling party, PIS, was actually supported by Edyta Górniak, who was the 1994 representative and also a jury member, I believe, last year when the whole Blanca thing took place. But apparently, Edyta and Justyna hate each other, and Justyna is also very anti-PIS. So, in a way, the selection of Justyna kind of makes sense from a new government's perspective. So yeah, that's Poland with their very surprisingly complex internal politics. So let's move on to Portugal, who are having the national final Festival da Canção, and they have announced their songwriters. There's been a few big ones in there, unfortunately none that I recognize, so I'm not going to point them out. But you can, of course, just check them out on their websites and such. And yeah, the national final is going to be in March, and I think, as usual, there's going to be 2 semifinals, and then there's gonna be 5 selected from each semifinal, and then from each semifinal there's gonna be another televote wildcard, so there will be 12 entries in the final. But beyond that, beyond the names in the lineup of the songwriters, usually it is just themselves, but sometimes songwriters don't write songs for themselves. But beyond the lineup of songwriters, we don't really know anything about their selection. We don't know the exact dates or anything like that. So let's move on to San Marino, who are having the national final. Una Voce per San Marino, as they did with last year and the year before then, but this year they've reintroduced the big category. Because last year was too many randoms, I guess. But yeah, they stirred up some controversy when they announced that they would allow AI to help with the songwriting. But later, people checked it and found that it was just a pretty trash chatbot, basically. And at the end, only like 12 entries were submitted, a few of which were actually troll entries. I saw in the thumbnail there was a Rickroll that someone submitted, and it was like really, really quickly closed after the submission even started. So, needless to say, it wasn't a terribly great idea from San Marino. We'll probably touch on AI later, but yeah, that's something that's happened in San Marino. We have the date of the final is on the 24th, and I think, as usual, there's going to be 10 entries in the final, and the entry will be selected by a jury panel of 5 people. After that, we have Serbia, and news fresh off the press. We have the names participating in the national final Pesma za eUrOvIsIoN. Among them, we have names like Filip Balos, who you might remember from last year. This time he's back with a new song, which, interestingly, I noticed was not actually self-written. He actually wrote this with some other person. We have, Filip Balos, as I mentioned, Teodora, who's not to be confused with Taya from Taya and Selena. Teodora, Zaina, who you might also remember from 2023, and also Zoria from 2022. But speaking of 2022, we also have Constracta. Now, that's a big one. I don't think anyone expected this. Because actually, after Eurovision, she said that she probably wouldn't take part again. And then after the names were announced, she was like, okay, so I guess I lied. But yeah, Constracta is back, which is very, very interesting. And like I mentioned, we also have Filip Balos, Teodora, and Breskvica as well. So that's going to be very interesting. There's a lot of really strong names in the national final, and I think this could be one to look out for. So Serbia has a surprisingly strong selection this year. Although they still won't have an audience, they'll still just have the national final in the studio of RTS. So yeah, there's that. And from Serbia, let's move to another Balkan country. Would you count Slovenia as Balkan? But yeah, we're moving on to Slovenia, who have internally selected Raven with the song Veronica. Now, initially, they were going to do a kind of small national final called Misija Malmö. However, after the entries were evaluated, they had, first off, an internal jury selected 5 songs from all of the songs, and then they handed those 5 songs to an international jury, which which voted on all of the songs and which ones they thought were the best. And well, apparently Veronica got more than half of the votes, so that's kind of huge. And RTV Slow clearly just thought that, screw it, let's not even waste money on a national final, let's just select Raven. And fans of Slovenia might remember that in previous years, in the late 2010s, Raven had already been in the national final for Slovenia. That's 3 times now. I believe she got 2nd place twice and 3rd place once. So yeah, she was really, really close several times, and finally she's been selected. Now, Veronica is a song apparently about this kind of duchess or a princess or something like that, who was apparently accused of witchery and was murdered because of that. So yeah, that's a very interesting story. But in the kind of trailer video, it was like very mystical. There was some water involved and might have been a snake involved of some kind. So yeah, it's actually a pretty well-known story in Slovenian folklore, and that's going to be very interesting to see. And as mentioned here, the song is in the Slovene language. And if you're wondering who Sarah Briški Tirman is, and that's just the real name of Raven, nothing too special there. So let's move on to Spain, who are returning to the national final, Benidorm Fest. Now, with Benidorm Fest, a lot of people were expecting maybe one or two entries from the previous few years would return. But that didn't really happen. Especially, I think people were getting excited about Migara. A lot of people were hoping that Migara would be kind of selected again for Benidorm Fest, especially, you know, since Blanca Paloma got selected again after having showed up at Benidorm Fest 2022. And yeah, well, that did not happen to at least someone who's only followed Benidorm Fest, like myself. It's all new names, and there's a couple of favorites actually. I would say the single biggest one is Almacor. That's I would say the single biggest one is Almacor or Almacor. I don't really know how to pronounce it. But there are also several other favorites like Sophia Call, like Maria Pillai, and I think more recently there's been a kind of almost rising favorite called Saint Pedro, I think it's called. They're singing some sort of ballad. Again, I have literally not listened to a single song this whole national final season. But yeah, Almacor is kind of the big favorite, I would say. And then there's also Maria Pillai, and also Sophia Call, and yeah, St. Pedro. And also some people would say Angie Fernandez, but I don't really know for sure. Again, I just think the big favorite probably is Almacor. He's interacting a lot on socials, especially on Twitter. His song is kind of like a rap, kind of R&B type song. You know, if you haven't listened to it, kind of imagine Latza at San Remo last year with Genere, kind of like that. Some people would say it's worse, but I don't know for sure. I've only listened to like part of it. So yeah, those are some of the things happening with Benidorm Fest. As usual, there's going to be 2 semifinals, and the voting system, I believe, remains the same from last year as well. Although a lot of fans think that the general level of quality of music is a little bit lower, but still, I'm sure they're going to give a fantastic staging, fantastic way to put on the national vinyl, as they usually do. And one thing I just remembered about Almacor is that he said basically his staging is actually going to be done by someone who also did the staging of Aitana, from Lost 40 or something like that. I can't remember, but yeah, it was some pretty big staging. So yeah, I guess get hyped, I suppose. So yeah, that's Spain. They're gonna have Benidorm Fest. The big favorite, I would say, is Almacor, which I think is pretty cool because I like his song, or at least a little bit that I have heard of it. So yeah, let's go from Spain to Sweden, where we are, of course, having Melodifestivalen. And many people have referred to this edition of Melodifestivalen as Melfest All-Stars, because there's some seriously big names in there, and you know, at this point in time, it's kind of hard to pin down one potential winner. like, just to rattle off a few names that I can remember off the top of my head, we have Lisa Ajax, Smash Into Pieces, Daughter, Danny Salcedo, Marcus Martinez, Medina, also Maria Sur, but she's obviously not, a favorite as it is. And also Fröken Snusk, who is new to Melfest actually, but is bringing something really, really different. I think she's a rapper or something like that, but one thing that's interesting is that she's wearing some sort of mask thing to kind of conceal her identity beyond the eyes and mouth. So that's going to be very interesting. And I think among the names that I just mentioned, and Clara Klingenstrom as well from, you might remember, Behöver inte dig idag. That was her entry a while back, and people loved it. No Kiara. No Kiana or Teos, but it's doesn't really matter. We already have such a huge lineup that I feel like Sweden is already guaranteed a top 5 result. So yeah, an absolutely huge national final in Sweden, and I'm gonna upload the my plans video later. But basically, I'm actually gonna go to Melfest, and depending on the plans of one of my friends, I might go to that Melfest weekend pre-party as well. There's gonna be some cool names there, presumably. So yeah, that's Sweden with Melody Festival and All Stars. With that said, let's move on to Switzerland, where yesterday we got this Instagram story from the head of delegation. So, I guess it just says it all for itself. We won't send a mail ballot. Surprise! Obviously the last 4 years, Switzerland has been quite reputed to be sending a mail ballot, or some people call it a sad boy ballot. But this year, according to the head of delegation, that's not happening. So what will they send? We don't know yet, but there is an inkling. There is this idea that it might be a song from the Suiza songwriting camp. I've talked about this on the show. I guess this is a show now, and also the blog post a while back. Basically, they had a songwriting camp in Switzerland called Suiza, which Taya from Taya and Selena attended, and she wrote online that she believes she has already heard the Swiss entry for Eurovision 2024, since several of the songs from that songwriting camp were sent to the Swiss broadcaster. So we might be getting some sort of girl bop, who knows, but it seemingly, according to the head of delegation, won't be a male ballot. So hooray for that. So yeah, the Switzerland, the artists, I think, will be announced in March again. So yeah, that's gonna be fun. But other than that, we don't really know much else. Their selection is pretty secretive. I believe they're down to either 5 or 3 entries. I don't know if they've actually done the selection yet. Maybe it will be done in January or something. We'll have to see. But according to the head of delegation, the entry to be selected will not be a male ballot. So with that said, let's move on to Ukraine, who are having, of course, the national final with beer. Now, the news that is most recent relating to this selection is that I believe just 1 or 2 days ago we got the wildcard entry. They had a 20 long list, and the jury internally selected 10 entries to be in the actual national final. And then after that, the rest, minus one actually, for some reason someone withdrew. The other 9 were selected, and then basically the public were able to vote on their songs, which were released, and the winner ended up being Anka, Anka, who won this vote with about 26% of all of the candidates, like all of the vote actually. So yeah, that's pretty huge. But yeah, Anka with I believe the song is called Palala or something like that. It's kind of trappy, but also kind of folksy, I guess. If you remember Go A from a few years ago, it's basically the same singing style that is used by Katarina from Go A, but the song is different. Again, like I said, it's more trappy. So that will now join the other 10 entries in the final of Vidbeer, which also include names like Melovin, yes, the one from 2018, and also Jerry Hale and Aliona, who are doing a duet of sorts. The song is called Teresa and Maria, which is going to be interesting. We have to see what they come up with. So there's also some other names. I think one that particularly catches my eye personally is Jagode. That's another name in there. I think that could be interesting. Their music is very folksy as well, so we'll have to see what happens with that. So that is Ukraine. After that, we have, at the time being, the last country to take part in the contest, in alphabetical order, and that is the UK, who have selected none other than Ollie Alexander to represent the UK in Eurovision 2024. Now, when this came out, this was quite a surprise to some people and less to others, because while he is a big name, he actually already applied to take part in Eurovision 2 years ago, and there was actually quite the fuss when it was reported that the BBC rejected Ollie Alexander over Sam Ryder. So there was a bit of fuss about that, but now and actually, according to Ollie himself, he didn't feel like he was ready or had the right song back in 2022, but now he feels like he does. And this song, we don't know the kind of release dates of the song yet, but what we do know for sure is that the song is co-written, you can see here, by Daniel Jack Eisner Harl, or usually known by the name Danny L. Harl. Now, he's you might not have heard of him, but you may have heard of some of his songs, because he was responsible for Dua Lipa's most recent single called Houdini, and he's also written songs for a number of other big English-speaking artists like Charlie XCX, Caroline Polachek, and I believe even Rina Sawayama. So Danny L. Harl is actually really big. He knows how to make good pop, and so there's big names behind this business. And in terms of the genre, Ollie has said that the song is going to be something you can dance to. It's going to be a kind of dance song, electronic song with 80s influences. So that's going to be very cool. And I also forgot to talk about why the selection of Ollie Alexander is actually so significant, because first off, he's been wanting to do it for 2 years, but also he is the lead singer and currently only member of the group Years and Years. But it used to be a three-piece band. However, 2 of the members left, but Ollie is still going. He still tours with some touring members, although they are part of the band, but they don't really take part in like writing the songs and such. But now he's actually putting out more music on his own, kind of as Ollie Alexander rather than as Years and Years. But during the time as Years and Years, they've put out a number of singles which were very popular in the UK. I think they had a #1 album and also a few #1 singles as well, and sometimes it might even chart in other English-speaking countries like Australia or the US. And so, yeah, the guy's quite a big deal. And in fact, when this was announced, like legit everyone in the UK was talking about this. I've read tweets from British Eurofans that their even grandparents were talking about this and telling their grandchildren about this. So yeah, he's pretty huge in the UK, which is why you can see such hype in the British Eurofan community for Ollie Alexander. And also, he's performed with Elton John. So yeah, if anyone can perform alongside Elton John, that is pretty damn huge in the UK. So yeah, I have seen people lay doubt over his live vocals, but first off, since when did a dance song particularly need impressive vocals? And two, I actually watched part of that performance with Elton John, and he sounded perfectly fine, so I don't really know what you're on about. Yeah, so I think he's actually a really solid pick for the UK, and some people even think that the UK can win now, and we'll talk more about that when we get to the bookmakers. But first off, let's take a look at the other countries. Like I mentioned earlier, North Macedonia is not in, despite having put funds towards it in their budget. You can see here they want to focus on celebrations for radio and television, but they will still broadcast the contest. And I feel like the year after, they probably will return to the contest, so that's always nice. And after that, we have Romania. You can see here they will extend the deadline for the payments of the fees. And actually, like I mentioned, they have already approved the budget, actually. So I think it's just pending official announcements. In terms of artists for Romania, we have a few names that are possible. The first one is Mihai Trăistariu, I believe, who I think was the 2006 representative. But there's also one other name who I can't remember right now, who has also found a perfect song, according to himself. And also kind of lamented about how Romania can't take part in the contest, and said that he would submit to other broadcasters if he needs to. It was Mihai Trăistariu, actually, who expressed the whole I need to send my entry to some other countries if I have no choice. But the other name that also wrote songs to potentially take part for Romania is O.V. Jacobson, who was the representative in 2010 and 2014. So we might still get Romania. I think we will, actually. But we'll have to see what happens there for sure. We don't know anything else. We don't have official confirmation, and that will come up later as well as we talk about the allocation draw. But before then, let's talk about the general production. Now, some fans have actually been kind of hunting for Easter eggs in the kind of announcement video posted by Ollie Alexander, and such as Shane Reaction right here. He says that there's 4, which I can't see in this photo, but apparently, there's 4. You can see here with Night Call. There's a 4, and then there's a 26 on the phone box, and there's a 26 on the bus, and there's also 25 somewhere. I'm not really sure where. But yeah, those 4 letters or 4 numbers correlate to the letters of D, Z, Z, and Y. And you can see here the big hand of the clock is at I, or 1. That's Roman numeral, by the way. So, and also there's the dizzy emoji apparently on phone box. Again, I can't really see it here, but I do remember seeing it when the when he moved over to show the full phone box. And so yeah, there was a dizzy emoji. So Shane Reaction is speculating that the entry is called Dizzy. Now, you know, this was actually mentioned on the BBC at the Zoe Ball show. Although, you know, this is also speculation. I don't think they really know the song either. So yeah, it could be Dizzy, but some people also looked at the top thing, and they, you know, noticed that this was pointing at 4 right here, 4 p.m. obviously, or, you know, the 4th part, you get it. And they thought that maybe it could be Dazzy instead, or, you know, you could interpret this cross shape as an A and then call it Dazzy or something like that. Although some people have also suggested that maybe there could be more words in the title, but we'll have to see. But currently the prevalent theory is that the song is called Dizzy. This has neither been confirmed nor denied, and I guess we'll have to wait and see whether that is the case. More recently, it has emerged that Ollie Alexander has signed this petition calling for a ceasefire in Gaza. And then after that, the Israel in the UK embassy account tweeted that, and I quote, clearly, Ollie Alexander graduated from the Middle Eastern School of TikTok. We would be happy to arrange a trip for you to visit the October 7th massacre sites in Israel, where the rights of LGBTQ+ are celebrated, protected, and cherished. Unfortunately, our neighbors can't guarantee the same. Yeah, I feel like the EBU kind of have to do something about this. I don't know what, and I understand that, you know, bureaucracy is, you know, it takes time, but still, this is kind of openly harassing an artist from another country. Even if it's not threatening, some people are saying it's like threatening them, threatening Ollie Alexander, but I would say at the very least, this is definitely harassment. So, can the EBU do something about this? I don't know, but I feel like they should. Anyways, let's move on from that, and let's move on to the other countries that are mentioned here, the countries that may or may not take part. So yeah, in terms of production, we have a lot of names that have been very experienced with Eurovision and Sweden in the past. We will have Ebba Eldilsen as the executive producer, and a bunch of other names that I personally don't recognize, but one that I do recognize and a lot of people do recognize is Christer Björkman, who was the producer of American Song Contest, and also he was the Melody Festival producer up until 2021. So yeah, very recent stuff, and he also produced Eurovision 2013, so clearly he knows his stuff, and now he's coming back to produce Eurovision 2024. And yeah, those are some of the names, and another very important name is Edvard af Sillén, who, if you don't know who that is, he's basically the commentator for SVT for Eurovision. Last year, I remember seeing this video where after Norway performed, you know, what Edvard af Sillén said, that was Clara Hammerstrom Run to the Hills. But anyways, you know, besides being a commentator, he is also a script writer, and he has written the scripts for not just the Sweden hosted contests, but also I believe even Eurovision 2010, which was I think in Oslo, I think. But yeah, he's a script writer as well, and it was announced earlier on that Edvard af Sillén will return to write the script. And of course, he also produced the very iconic interval act Love, Love, Peace, Peace. So yeah, Edvard af Sillén and Daniel Wren will return to write the script for the hosts and also the opening and interval acts. You can see here, they've already done that for both 2013 and 2016. So very big stuff. And again, Edvard af Sillén is kind of hailed as a Eurovision genius. So yeah, I think we are in pretty safe hands. Now, this part I actually haven't seen. Apparently, you can see here they're going to increase security measures to keep in contact with the local police authority. So yeah, that is definitely concerning, but I haven't heard about this. So yeah, there you go. In terms of the slogan and visual design, I already mentioned this at the start of the video. The permanent slogan is now United by Music, and the theme art is the Eurovision lights. Now, I don't know how much that shows here. To me, this looks a little bit more like those kind of Spotify wrapped things. But they did have kind of Northern Lights inspired stuff, which is quite ironic because Malmö is quite literally Sweden's southernmost city, which means you absolutely cannot see Northern Lights in Malmö at all. So great awareness there. So yeah, that's I would say kind of disappointing. These things are, you expect more from Eurovision theme art, right? But I guess that's what happens when you have a smaller budget than usual. Now, onto stage design. It was unveiled on the 19th, which was a couple days ago, and you can see here it was designed by Florian Wieder. He already has a lot of credentials for creating Eurovision stages. You can see all of these. Most recently in 2021. This is a kind of textual description. I don't know why they don't put photos of it, but it does have movable LED cubes, and also it is set around a cross-shaped center, although I think that is a slight misnomer. I'll get to that when we get to the photos. But it does say it aims to create a unique 360-degree experience for viewers. So let's take a look at what that actually means. So these are the renders. This is from the official Eurovision website. You can see here, these are the aforementioned LED cubes, and it does look like a cross here. However, some people have wondered how the hell is the artist going to get on stage. Well, the answer is very simple, because it's not actually just a cross in the center. You can see here it actually can be rearranged to more like a corridor, so artists can just come out from the side to here. So it's actually more like a long cross, I suppose. You can see here it's a cross like that, but the kind of middle band is longer. Interestingly, actually like the Nordic cross, which is used in the Swedish flag. So yeah, artists will come out from the back and then over here into the center, and the fans with the standing seats will be around the stage and possibly maybe be able to touch the artist. Who knows? But yeah, you can see here up top, these are the movable LED cubes, and presumably Loreen is going to perform Tattoo with these LED cubes. So yeah, again, like I mentioned, it's a thing from the back, so the artist doesn't have to like go on from the side or anything. They come out from the back and come out here. So yeah, that's actually a really cool design. And for someone like Florian Wieder, who was known to create rather uninspired stage designs, this was actually really, really good. So yeah, this is going to be how the 2024 stage will look like. So yeah, that's really cool. And with that, let's get back to the wiki article. So those are the production elements of the contest. Now let's go to the format. You can see here, first we have the semifinal allocation draw. Now, what's interesting is that first off, they now are rebranding it as the draw for some reason or another. Yeah, it'll be taking place on the 30th of January at 1900 CET. Now, what's interesting is that in that article where they announced the draw and also the hosts that I'm going to talk about later, they didn't give the pots, because normally I think at this point of the year, they will probably give out the pots, which would indicate which countries will be drawn from which pots to join which semifinal, for example. But this year they haven't done that yet, and the realist in me says that we're waiting on Romania, and we definitely are. They haven't officially confirmed yet, but there's also part of me that thinks that maybe they're waiting because they might have to remove Israel from the pots, and you know what that means. And especially considering the fact that one of the hosts of the ceremony is Farah Abadi. She will be hosting the allocation draw alongside Pernilla Månsson Colt. And Farah Abadi, if you don't know her, basically she co-hosted Melody Festival in, I think, 2 years in a row. Most recently, 2023. And also, she was the spokesperson for the Swedish jury points during the grand final of 2023 as well. So, yeah, she's pretty relevant in the kind of Swedish Eurovision stuff. But also, she's actually of Palestinian origin, so I feel like it would be beyond cruel to have a Palestinian host be pulling out a ball with Israel on it. So maybe they're trying to get that removed, so we don't have an awkward situation where Farah Abadi has to be the one pulling out Israel. Or maybe they'll have her do the halves, for example. Who knows? But we'll have to see what happens. But for now, we don't have the pots of the distribution of the countries yet. So we don't really know when that's going to happen. So yeah, that's about that. And one thing that's not mentioned here is the potential hosts, as in the presenters for Eurovision 2024. Now, we don't have it yet. We don't have an official announcement yet, but one name that is very, very strongly hinted at is Gina Dirawi, or as Swedes might say, Huina Dirawi, because Swedish is a very, very strange language. Anyways, yeah, Gina Dirawi might be one of the hosts, if not the only host. Because recently she was on a show, and basically the hosts of that show asked her whether she was gonna host Eurovision, and basically she tried to avoid the question, and then later she told the studio audience to keep quiet, and then later that entire segment was cut out of the live broadcast. So we haven't gotten any official confirmation, but Gina Dirawi seems like a pretty likely candidate. It's also worth noting that Gina Dirawi, like Farah Abadi, is also of Palestinian origin. Whether this has any bearing, in their selection, we don't really know. Another name that is of Palestinian origin is Eric Sada, who you might remember from Popular 2011, I think, and he's been very vocal about the cruelties happening in Gaza. And some people think he might be selected. We don't really know for sure, but the most strongly rumored name right now is Gina Dirawi, who is not just Palestinian, she's also a very, very skilled presenter as well. Anyways, with the hosts out of the way, let's get to some of these proposed changes that might happen to the contests. The main one that's being talked about is the voting system, that is the jury. And you can see here also that the rules actually were already published on the 1st of November, and there weren't really any big changes. The big thing is the voting system. However, you can see here also that they are possibly going to reduce the run time of the grand final, by an hour. So it's going to be interesting to see how they're going to cut that. Maybe they're going to only have interval acts in the semifinals, maybe, but we'll have to see how that really works. And also, speaking of interval acts, actually, one very likely one is Zara Larsson, because even as early as, I think, July, she had already kind of entertained the idea of performing at Eurovision 2024 as an interval act. So that could happen. I don't think she's going to go to Melody Festivalen anytime soon, but we could very well see Zara Larsson perform some of her songs at Eurovision 2024, be it in the semi-final or in the grand final as an interval act. So that could be interesting. So now let's get to the main change that they wanted to talk about, is that they wanted to kind of review how the jury is voting. Obviously, in 2023, the winner had a huge lead in the jury. Lorraine had a huge jury mark, while Gadia obviously did not. So there's been discussions into kind of reforming the jury. Norway, NRK, especially the head of delegation of NRK, really wants the jury power to be reduced, hence them having a 40% jury in MGP, as I mentioned earlier. So yeah, you can see Stig Carlson, he discussed the idea of reducing the jury's weight. He posted during the workshop in Berlin that he got mission accomplished, but apparently he said in a later interview that this just meant getting a schnitzel, apparently. So he says that he will follow anything that's he will respect anything that the EBU puts out in regards to rules changing in the voting system. After that, we have something about AI. Like I mentioned earlier, San Marino, they had a thing where they had the chatbots write songs, and they only got 12 entries, 3 or 4 of which were troll entries at least, and then they already closed that. So yeah, that's safe to say that didn't really go too well. But the EBU is also openly discussing banning AI from Eurovision. So we'll see how that really pans out, I suppose. So at the end here, we have the broadcasts. I'm not really going to talk about these because there's nothing particularly interesting for now. But you can see Luxembourg is broadcasting all of the shows on RTL, so that's going to be very cool. And also, North Macedonia is going to be broadcasting as well. So that's all of the news from the wiki page. However, there's always some stuff that they're not going to talk about on the wiki page, and those are the pre-parties. I'm just going to rattle it off on my based on what I can remember right now. But I have written more details on the blog. First off, there's the Eurovision in Concert, which is a pre-party that takes place in Amsterdam. I will be going, so maybe you can say hi if you're interested. We already have our first confirmed name that was only confirmed today, and that was Joost Klein. Obviously, he's representing the Netherlands, and also Musti. I think Musti is also confirmed for the Eurovision in Concert. So yeah, that's gonna be cool. I believe I heard from Ollie Alexander and Raven from Slovenia. I think those two are gonna go to as many pre-parties as possible as well, so that's great. Yeah, that's Eurovision in Concert. We also have the London Eurovision Party, which is basically hosted by Wee Blogs. After that, we have the two Spanish pre-parties, one in Madrid and one in Barcelona. I myself am going to the one in Barcelona because Cornelia Jacobs is also going to be there. So again, if you want to say hi, feel free. Again, there's also going to be a one in Madrid as well, and those are kind of the main ones that I can think of right now. I really, really doubt there's going to be one in Tel Aviv for pretty obvious reasons. And I've also heard that the Polish Eurovision Party, PEP, is probably not taking place this year either, which is a real shame because I'm just going to be in Vilnius, and that's Lithuania is just next door to Poland. So yeah, real shame, but what can we do? Yeah, there's that, and also there's one pre-party in Melfest, the Melfest weekend pre-party, although that isn't really considered to be much of a pre-party, according to many fans. But I will be there, well, tentatively anyway. I haven't got the tickets, but I've been told that the tickets never sell out. So, yeah, I'm not in a hurry in particular. So I will probably be at Melfest weekend as well, because I will be at Melfest in Stockholm. So yeah, again, catch me there if you're interested. And yeah, in terms of pre-parties, I think that's it. Although there is a thing called a Nordic Eurovision party, but that's not a pre-party because I think it actually takes place during the week of Eurovision. So you can join that as well if you're interested, but I'm not particularly interested. So yeah, those are the pre-parties. And finally, let's take a look at the current odds of Eurovision 2024 and kind of analyze them with way too little evidence to go off of. So let's go from the bottom to top. We have San Marino, Georgia, Albania, Czechia, all the way down to 34, which is kind of, is reasonable, I guess, given that live performance. Ireland, Slovenia, which I think is a little bit disappointing. I really feel like Raven should be higher than this. Luxembourg, again, kind of disappointing. Latvia, Croatia, Malta. I think Malta is way too high. What the hell are they doing up there? Moldova, that's kind of normal. They haven't announced anything, so who knows who's going to qualify. And also, these are winning odds, by the way, so we don't even have qualification odds yet. But yeah, after this, we have Cyprus, Belgium, Armenia, Poland, Estonia, Austria, Germany, Greece, Netherlands, Australia, Iceland, Portugal, Serbia, Denmark. Why the hell is Denmark at 13th? Do the bookmakers know something that we don't? I don't think Denmark should ever be that high, or at least not without prior information of the artists taking part in the national final. Azerbaijan, I would wager that this is due to ISIL. Finland, I would have expected them to be higher, to be honest. France, of course, Slimane is a very good live vocalist. Spain, probably Albacore, I don't really know. Now, this one is a very interesting one. Switzerland. This is brand new, by the way. This is from today. So the people clearly saw the "we're not sending a mail ballot" announcement, and then immediately someone you can see from William Hill clearly put money into Switzerland. So that's gonna be very interesting to see whether Switzerland can live up to the hype. And then Lithuania, probably the Roop, let's be honest. Norway, Sweden, Italy, Ukraine, UK. I have to remind you, most, if not all, of these bookmakers are UK based. So a lot of the people who put money into this are going to be from the UK. And, as a result, that's why the UK is that high. They were actually as high as number 1 at one point. But right now, number 1 is Israel, because people like to overfixate on wars and think that they automatically mean that people will vote for them. So yeah, that's Israel at the top, and also followed by all these countries. Most of these are like expected. Otherwise, there's usually a reason. We know the artists, for example. So yeah, that's the odds for now. And while we're at it, let's take a look at the San Remo and Melodifestivalen odds as well. Right, so here are the odds for San Remo 2024. You can see Alessandra Amoroso is still on top, like I mentioned earlier. Giolier is also really high, and Annalisa has now overtaken Negramaro. For a while, actually, I believe Negramaro was actually number 1 in the odds. Although, again, these are very early stage kind of speculation, because like I mentioned, the press only gets to listen to the songs in mid January. So from there, I think people have a much better idea of what the songs sound like, because the press is going to make a lot of notes about what the songs do sound like, and people can kind of base their predictions off of that. So it's good to see Annalisa in the top 3 at least, but I feel like Annalisa should be the favorite, and I think it depends on the people, really. I have heard that apparently Annalisa is at a popular enough level that she probably can win the televote in San Remo, but we'll have to wait and see. You can tell from my tone that I'm kind of cheering for Annalisa. After that, we have Mahmood. I'm actually kind of surprised at how high he is. Angelina Mango. After that, Il Volo. Again, I thought people would have bet on this a little bit more. But you do you. I wouldn't mind Il Volo not winning. Irama. Above Diodato. I feel like that's kind of strange. I feel like Diodato will be above, but whatever. I don't know much about Italian music. And then we have Emma, Fiorella, Manoia, Mr. Rain, Gazelle, or is that Gatelle? I don't know. The Colors, Scali, San Giovanni, Ranga and Neck, Loredana Berte, Dargan D'Amico, Alpha, Big Mama, Rose Villain, Lassad, Il Tre, Fred De Palma, Manini, and Ricky Epolveri. So yeah, those are interesting, but mostly I just wanted to kind of check the top and see where Annalisa is among them. So yeah, we'll have to see whether Annalisa can actually go to Eurovision and be the first woman to represent Italy in 10 years. So here we are on Melodifestivalen. We also have the song names as well. And currently Marcus and Martinez are leading because, remember, of course, last year they really only lost because it was freaking Lorraine in running. So I guess that kind of makes sense. And then we also have Dennis Salcedo, which I'm a bit less convinced with. I feel like this case is going to be a bit more like Victoria from last year, kind of flopping a little bit. And then Daughter with a really, really long song name. It's not easy to write a love song. And yeah, those three are the kind of main favorites, it seems, because after that we have Jay Smith, who is relative to a lot of the other names, nobody. Apparently he sings kind of country rock type stuff. Liamu is back. I kind of forgot to mention him. Smashing the Pieces, Cassiopeia, Lisa Ayas, Kim Cesarion, Maria Sur, Jacqueline, Clara Klingenström with a song called Aldrig Mer, and then Medina, Adam Woods, Albin Tingvall, Samuel Victor. Yes, they are back. They disbanded a while back, but they are back since, I believe, June or something this year. Fröken Snusk is way too low. I feel like Fröken Snusk should be way higher than a lot of these. Elisa Lindström, Annika Wickehalde, Lea Larsson, Dia Sara, Scarlett Sijo, Melinda Boglova, Claudie, Chelsea Muko, Electra, who is actually a drag queen, Lasse Stefans, Engman Skapel, and Gunnar Persson. That's very interesting because Gunilla Persson is actually an actress in Sweden, and even just after the names were announced, she was already having beef with someone, namely Fröken Snusk. So, on their name at least. So that's going to be very interesting to follow. But yeah, that's what we know so far about Eurovision 2024 as of late December of 2023, and I guess this counts as a kind of year-end roundup of what we know of news relating to Eurovision 2024. So thank you for watching, and like this video if you enjoy my commentary, subscribe so you don't miss my future content, including an updates video, which I'm going to be posting very soon. And other than that, I'm not posting any more videos this year, so Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and I'll see you in 2024.